I am with Mr. Mark Oscord Otile, a research officer with Accord. So, welcome, Mr. Oscord, to the Dawn Media Studios.
Well, thank you, Fatia, for hosting me today in Dawn Media Studios. I am pleased to be here to discuss matters of domestic revenue mobilization.
Okay. Now, in the financial year 2019-2020, the tax body received revenue of it was around 436 million Ugandan shillings from the extractive sector. However, this revenue declined in the financial year 2020-2021 to around 241 million shillings. Mr. Mark, what caused this?
To respond to your question why there's dwindling revenue in the extractive sector, I would like to focus on the mining sector as I respond to this question. There are different factors that could be responsible, and one of them is that so far in the sector we have observed that there is always varying information regarding revenues that have been registered in the sector, and so it is always difficult to tell where the issue is, because you'll find that sometimes Uganda Revenue Authority will post a certain figure, and then the Department of Geological Surveys and Mines, which is at the Ministry of Energy, will also post a different figure. So there is always that variation, and you can understand how it comes about. First of all, it is difficult to know in terms of volumes how much really comes from each of these mining sites. Why? Because there is no mechanism in place by the tax body to be able to validate or verify the amount or quantity of minerals that will be coming from each mining site. You just see a heap of sand loaded on trucks, and they're moving in and out of the districts where the mining is taking place, but you can't really say this is 1 ton of gold or 3 tons of gold. Of course, it is mixed with sand. It is not yet refined, probably making its way to the refinery, and that has been a key challenge, really. But additionally to that, in the most recent Auditor General's report, the Auditor General tries to make observations about certain revenues not collected in gold exports that should have been collected by URA, and probably that could explain also why there seems to be a reduction in revenue collection in the extractives. Particularly for that case, I think the Auditor General had observed about between 300 to 500 billion shillings that should have been collected by URA, but URA hadn't collected.
From the extractives?
Yes, especially from the mining sector. This was supposed to be from gold exports. And I think on their part, URA did explain why they didn't collect what the Auditor General had observed in his report. And it was because they had received a guidance from the Minister of Energy not to collect revenue from certain specific companies. Yeah, so that could explain why we see those variances and reductions in revenue collection from the sector.
I would like to understand what are some of the importances of Uganda's extractive sector when it comes to domestic revenue mobilization.
Everybody is aware about what is happening in this country as far as financing the national budget is concerned. I followed your conversation with the gentleman that was from the Center for Budget and Economic Governance, and you were talking about the debt burden. There's also been a quest by this country to be independent financially. You know, we always say we are independent. We attained independence in 1962. But many years later, people keep asking the question, are we really independent? If, for example, Uganda can legislate a law and another foreign entity or external entity says, because you have legislated in this manner, we are going to penalize you and maybe reduce on financing of your budget. So there's been voices about Uganda being independent and being able to mobilize resources to finance its own budget to be able to deliver on services. So when you look at such a background, there's no better time for extractives industry to be relevant, to be able to help this country, Uganda, to raise revenue to be able to finance its budget. So because of that, I think the extractives industry is very important.
Okay, what are some of the challenges that has made it very difficult for Uganda to maximize on the potential of the extractive sector when it comes to revenue mobilization?
Firstly, the biggest challenge for me of the sector is tax exemptions. We have observed that there are companies in this country that doing mining activities in the country that continue to enjoy tax exemptions, and some of these exemptions are never ending. When they expire, they always get renewed, and yet there is a study out there that is known to the entire world that tax exemptions does not necessarily attract investors into the country. So the question is, why do we keep insisting to give some companies exemptions? The other challenge for the extractive sector that is causing the country not to maximize revenue from the sector is the issue of double taxation agreements. Uganda entered into agreements with some countries, for example, the Netherlands, and some companies have really taken advantage of this, and they come to our country. They are extracting minerals from this country, but when it comes to paying their own share of taxation, they always say they are already paying in another country that already has a double taxation agreement with Uganda. And for me, I think that is one of the areas where the country is losing a lot of revenues in the sector. The other challenge of the sector is the opaqueness, the nature of opaqueness in the sector. The sector has a lot of secrecy, and information is not shared widely. Very recently, we were in the Midwestern Alberta in Graben, where we have been implementing the domestic revenue mobilization project, to try and do some revenue tracking. And one of the observations made from that trip was that local governments were complaining about the lack of sharing of information that they requested for from the oil production companies that are operating in their districts. For example, Bulisa district was did write to Total Energies to provide information about the number of staffs they were employing who were meant to contribute to local service tax. And Total took almost about an entire year without responding to Bulisa district local government. And for that year, Bulisa district local government was not able to earn anything from the workers of Total Energies. We need to know that there are a number of companies that are operating in such local governments. The main contractors, for example, for Tilenga, the main contractor is Total, but Total has been able to subcontract other companies to play other roles. There are companies such as Sinopec, there are companies such as Living Earth that are dealing with livelihoods and so on and so forth, and all these have employed workers who should be able to contribute to the local service tax. And for those years below the financial year 2022 and 2023, the district was not able to earn any revenue from that. Okay. We also discovered that actually the years prior to that, Total was making these deductions from their staffs and remitting the money to Kampala City Council Authority.
Yet they're in Hoima?
Yes, these workers were resident in Hoima. But after 1 year and after the engagements between the district and Total and Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Total began remitting the local service tax to Bulisa district local government. So Bulisa has so far earned revenue from local service tax to the tune of almost 60 million Ugandan shillings because of that engagement. But just to drive the point home, there is a lot of secrecy in the sector. Okay. The other issue is Uganda has a lot of porous borders, so a lot of mining is taking place, but also a lot of our minerals are escaping out of the country without being captured by URA as exports. For example, it is said that gold is one of our highest export earner for the country, but also it is said that most of that gold that is being captured as our export does not actually come from Uganda. Okay. It comes from other countries, and it begs the question, where then is our own gold that is being mined going? We know that, yes, I know that there is a refinery in Entebbe, but I still think that most of our gold is making its way out of the country from the porous borders and being smuggled out of the country, and so the country is losing a lot of revenue that should have been earned from that.
So are there any measures?
Other challenges.
Are there any measures that can be taken by the government to ensure that they do not lose such revenue, but rather increase on the revenue they earn from the extractive sector?
Yes. Firstly, I think now that Uganda is a member of Extractives Industry Transparency Initiative, which focuses on issues of transparency and accountability in the sector. The first thing government can do is to ensure that companies that are operating in the sector become more transparent. We would like to be able to access more information about all the players in the sector. That is number one. And I think already steps are being done to ensure that there is more information about oil production, the companies that are in oil production as well as those that are in the mining sector. Secondly, I think the government needs to construct way bridges so that we are able to ascertain the volumes of minerals that come out of every mining site, to be able to guarantee precision. You want to think that yes, the figures that were being given right now by Uganda Revenue Authority and the Department of Geological Surveys and Mines, you want to think that that figure can triple if some of these measures are actually put in place.
Okay.
The other third intervention that I think is important for the sector is to renegotiate double taxation agreements with the countries where we have entered these agreements with, like the Netherlands, to be able to limit on the revenue losses we are currently losing under that arrangement. And also government needs to stop the habit of giving tax exemptions, especially the exemptions that are given for many years. And recently I was hearing the president speak about tax holidays being given to big companies, and yet small interventions that are being done, like by the youth, are not able to get such exemptions. But exemptions really are one of the ways in which this country is losing a lot of revenue from the sector. So if we must really be able to finance our own budget as a country, we really need to tie all the loose ends for us to be able to maximize revenue from the extractive sector. Okay,
thank you, Mr. Mark Oscord Otile, for that information. Any parting shots?
I want to say that in Uganda is very fortunate to be able to be talking development of the extractive sector at this point in time. For example, the petroleum industry, we have had a lot of opportunity to learn from countries that have been in oil production for many years, like Nigeria and other countries who have made mistakes in the sector. I think that if we take seriously what we have learned from those countries, we'll be able to reduce on the errors and be able to earn a lot from the extractive sector. And that means if we can do that, then this saying that, for example, oil and gas can be a curse, I think for us, if we take seriously the lessons that we have observed from other countries, oil and gas or petroleum is not going to be a curse for our country, but rather a blessing, and which is going to help us to attain financial freedom, to be able to finance our national budget, and to be able to deliver service delivery for the people of Uganda.